Welcome one and all to Books in Focus.
John said she was coming.
Here's the new fiction, hot new fiction coming out in June. First up, we have Swan Song by Ellen Hilderbrand. This is the fourth and purportedly the last novel in her Nantucket novels series. The first of which came out back in 2008. So this one does feature the return of some of her most beloved characters from that series. And the premise is you have the house of the fabulously wealthy and not well-liked Richardsons, which has burned down. Their house has burned down, and their concierge has gone missing. This is high drama escapism at its finest. Then we have Resurrection by Danielle Steele. In this one, a 42-year-old influential blogger gets the shock of her life after a surprise visit to see her husband on his business trip. While reeling, she ends up being stranded in Paris due to a worldwide health crisis. I think this is set during COVID. And she finds refuge in the home of an aging French actress where she also meets a widowed American engineer. Eruption by Michael Crichton and James Patterson is also coming out in June. Quote, the biggest thriller of 2024, a history-making eruption is about to destroy the big island of Hawaii, but a secret held for decades by the U.S. military is far more terrifying than any volcano. Now, you may already be aware, but Michael Crichton is deceased. So what this is his wife got in touch with Patterson to complete the novel with Crichton's notes and manuscripts. Midnight Feast is the latest by Lucy Foley. It's the deliciously twisty new locked room murder mystery. Set in a luxury retreat center inside an ancient forest that holds deadly secrets. On the resort's opening weekend, there is a fire, a discovered body, and something's not quite right with the guests. Jacqueline Winspear is publishing the final book in her best-selling historical mystery novel series. Final. Featuring Maisie Dobbs, the psychologist and investigator. You're a fan? This one, she unravels a profound mystery from her past in a war-torn nation grappling with its future. Set in 1945 London. Susan Mallory has a book coming out called For the Love of Summer. It's a novel about a woman who, for the sake of her daughter, takes in her ex-husband's new wife and toddler after he is arrested. It's described as heartfelt, breezy relationship fiction. On the same summer theme is The Summer Escape by Jill Shalvis. It's the latest in the Sunrise Cove romance series about a private investigator who pairs up with an adventurous bad boy to find out the truth behind a rare gold coin. It's a, quote, sizzling tale of enemies to lovers, redemption, missing treasures, and love. And then lastly, Red Star Falling by Steve Barry is an action-packed adventure in which Luke Daniels, the character from his series, embarks on a quest to find the legendary library of Ivan the Terrible, which might hold the key to stopping a secret Soviet satellite program. This is actually the second book in his latest series. Moving on to nonfiction. Bye.
We have the hot new nonfiction coming out, starting with When the Sea Came Alive by Garrett Graff. This is a fascinating, action-packed account of the D-Day invasion that captures the epic events of that day and the human cost in immersive detail. It's being described as a fitting tribute to all the men and women who served during World War II. On Call by Anthony Fauci. Excuse me.
Ironic.
Yeah. Clearly I need to give this call.
Is it communicable?
Hopefully not. I think it was from some dusty books upstairs. This is a new memoir that looks at Dr. Fauci's life from his boyhood in Brooklyn through the decades of caring for critically ill patients, navigating the quagmire of Washington politics, and the behind-the-scenes advising and negotiating with seven different presidents on key health issues, described as being full of wit, humor, and the sensitivity that made Dr. Fauci famous. Next, we have Hip Hop is History by Questlove. In this landmark book, Questlove skillfully traces the creative and cultural forces that made and shaped hip hop, highlighting influential and forgotten artists weaving together their stories to tell a compelling history of a unique artistic movement still happening today. Then we have Democracy or Else by Jon Favreau et al. Goodness, pardon me. This is a useful and illustrative, slightly satirical guide to saving American democracy just in time for the 2024 election in just 10 easy steps. Each chapter promises to take the reader step by step through the perils, pitfalls, and shenanigans of being involved in the democratic process without completely losing your mind or all of your friends. Described as surprisingly helpful, candid, and humorous with practical advice from experts and the least annoying politicians around. Don't know about that last part, but you know. Next we have Love and Whiskey by Fawn Weaver. This is a meticulously researched, well-written narrative nonfiction that dives into the life and legacy of Nearest Green, the African-American distilling genius who played a pivotal role in the creation of the whiskey that bears the name Jack Daniels. It's described as a captivating journey that reads more like a novel than This book is noted for exploring the friendship between Green and Daniels and the importance of celebrating those who have shaped our cultural landscape. All the Worst Humans by Phil Elwood, and this is an exact quote: a bridge-burning, riotous memoir by a top PR operative in Washington who exposes the secrets of the 129 billion with a B industry that controls so much of what we see and hear in the media. This is a piercing book that looks into the corridors of money, power, politics, and control, all told in a disarmingly humorous tone. It's described as engaging, eye-opening, and a thought-provoking read. Woman of Interest by Tracy O'Neill. And if some of you recognize her name, yes, that is the mystery author, Tracy O'Neill, has written a memoir, and this one describes is described as a unique story written like one of her mystery novels. You follow her as she tracks down the mysterious mother who she has never met, who may or may not be on the wrong side of the law, dying somewhere in South Korea. O'Neill beautifully blends memoir and mystery writing together in this fast-paced, gripping narrative nonfiction. And then finally, we have Taking London by Martin Dugard. He is the co-author of Bill O'Reilly on the Killing series. This is the third in the Taking series. He dives into the inspiring account of England during the Blitz. This book is being described as putting the reader in the action of the Blitz and with Churchill, as it tells the complex personal sagas of Churchill, Downing, and a variety of legendary fighter pilots from that time period. So that's all of the hot nonfiction. So we'll get into our regular list now, starting with The Same as It Ever Was by Claire Lombardo. This new novel explores family relationships, intergenerational friendships, and the happenstantial events, hey, I got that one right without stuttering, that govern our lives as we follow Julia, a 57-year-old mother of two, who feels she finally has a firm handle on her life, especially with her youngest daughter about to depart from college. That is, until an unexpected announcement from her son and a chance encounter with an estranged friend from her past that causes her to reevaluate herself and her place in her community. Lombardo is described as proving herself a true cartographer of the human heart. So a lot of fun, a lot of bittersweet moments in this upcoming novel of hers. The first read like I have, not just to get acquainted with Claire Lombardo's style and voice, but also because it has similar themes around family relationship and random events. It is The Most Fun We Ever Had, also by Claire Lombardo. This one, I almost my place here. This one looks at how random events shape our relationships with our family, and how time moves forward, and how it forces the habit of reevaluating ourselves and others. It focuses on 4 sisters who find themselves reconsidering their choices and relationships with each other as old rivalries reignite and unexpected secrets surface that threaten to shatter the lives that they have built separate from each other. The next read-alike I have is French Braid by Anne Tyler, also because of its focus on choices and events and how it impacts our relationships with friends and family. This one focuses around the Garrett family. Despite the fact that the Garrett family rarely leaves home and are almost always together, they have never been further apart. Yet their influence on each other is unmistakable as we follow them through the generations and the different choices they make as they grow.
Good afternoon, ladies.
Hi.
All right. The Housemaid is watching. It's the third in the gripping thriller, The Housemaid series. Millie has left her housemaid career and dark past for a suburban family and life, but the quiet cul-de-sac may be more dangerous than Millie had hoped for. When she begins to notice shadows moving the corners of her eye, and she receives warnings about those around her. This is a deceitful thriller mystery with characters had 2 books previously, with a traumatic past and the character escaping her history. The read-alikes for that are going to be, oh look, Lucy Foley again. Where is it? The Paris apartment. When Jess visits her brother in Paris, she arrives to his vacant apartment and slowly realizes he is missing and suspects it's the fault of one of his eclectic neighbors. Followed by Lisa Jules, The Family Upstairs. 25 years after the murder of her parents and being left an orphan, Libby inherits a large estate, but someone else has been waiting for this day to come. Godwin by Joseph O'Neill. Oh, that's right. I think I have an O'Neill on my list. Not the same O'Neill, I don't think. This is sort of like a sports drama. Self-destructive writer Mark Wolf is brought into the schemes of his soccer agent half-brother to sign on an African soccer football player who is possibly the next greatest player ever, exploring the goods and evils of soccer and the infamous history of international business and transatlantic trade and the prospects of colonialism. There's a lot of family aspects or factors in this, and then like competing with making money, but the efficacies of using people. Real-likes for this are going to be Headshot by Rita Bullwinkle. 8 boxers each with her own interpersonal histories, desires, and sacrifices, go head to head in the competition they've dedicated their lives to in this novel that explores the hardships of female athletes. And The Future by Naomi Alderman, a group of misfits band to take the assets of the rich who are destroying their planet for profit, but their failure could spell the end for us all.
Is it a wolf? Is it a fox? Is it a kangaroo?
Yes. Yeah. All three. Look. It's hanging out. Yeah, I'll just use that.
Interesting title. Love Letters to a Serial Killer. This is a debut. Author is also a poet. This is kind of a satire thriller. Hannah, who is in her 30s, turns to an online true crime community for connection after a recent breakup. A case involving the murders of 4 women in Atlanta grabs her attention, and she decides to write to the handsome lawyer arrested for the crimes to give him a piece of her mind. But she ends up developing feelings for him, and when she loses her job because of her obsession with the case, she moves to Georgia to attend the trial and moves in with the man after he is acquitted. But her obsession remains, and she continues to investigate the murders, including the possibility of William, the man's involvement. This book is described not only as shocking and unputdownable, but also as lighthearted and witty. So you got kind of 2 different tones going on.
That sounds like a serial killers.
Yeah. So it's, again, a kind of a satirical critique of modern dating culture and also serial killer fixation. My Sister, the Serial Killer is another kind of dark satire. Satire meets slasher in this short, darkly funny hand grenade of a novel about a Nigerian woman whose younger sister has a very inconvenient habit of killing her boyfriends. And then Love in the Time of Serial Killers. This is more just in the romance vein, but obviously same serial killer theme. You have a PhD candidate in true crime obsessive Phoebe, who is convinced her neighbor is a serial killer. But it might just turn out that he's just a regular hunk. Okay, The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. This is a laugh out loud, feel good romance. Emma wants to be a screenwriter of rom-coms, but also has the responsibility of taking care of her dad. She takes an opportunity to help rewrite a rom-com script for a famous screenwriter, and who also happens to be her personal hero. She moves to LA for 6 weeks to do so. But Charlie Yates, the screenwriter, is a jerk who doesn't want to write anymore and also doesn't believe in love. His first rom-com screenplay is horrible, but Emma is just the person to make it a success. As you might expect, the characters are put through many of the common rom-com tropes. Quote, winsome and charming, Center's latest is that perfect blend of romance and overcoming life challenges that her readers treasure. Jasmine Guillory's By the Book. In this one, an editorial assistant helps a beastly celebrity write his memoir in an attempt to finally get the promotion she deserves. And then in Not Like the Movies by Carrie Winfrey, a woman who serves as her father's sole caregiver and has no time for romance begins to fall for her boss after her best friend writes a rom-com inspired by the two of them.
A novel love story by Ashley Poston. Eileen, a romance novel lover with a fear of being hurt in another relationship, finds herself trapped in the world of her favorite romance series. In the frozen, unfinished chapters of the latest in the series. She must find a way to finish the story for the author, but there's a character who doesn't want the story to end. A character Eileen finds irresistible. The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern. Two ringmaster magicians battle with imagination and showmanship to be the better of the two. But their battle to the death is interrupted when they fall for each other. But the show must go on.
It was good. That was good.
What I recommend. Old Flames and New Fortunes by Sarah Hull. In a magical hidden town in rural Ohio, a floral witch pretends to date her ex-lover's soon-to-be brother-in-law, a lot of hyphens in that sentence, in order to get into her ex's wedding. I'd actually pick that up. That sounds funny. Daughter of Fair Verona. By Christina Dodd. This is a reluctant romance murder mystery in Victorian era mashup. Romeo and Juliet's oldest daughter, Rosie, refuses to be married by playing matchmaker with the men her parents attempt to betroth her to. But when they attempt to marry her to a man whose previous 3 wives have died under unusual circumstances, she can't pass this monster off to another girl. Worse off, Rosie meets a man she finally finds interest in at her betrothal dance. This is an alternative story to the ending of Romeo and Juliet if the two didn't themselves. Rita likes. Oh, this is a mix of, how do you pronounce his name? The Duke and I, is like the review said it's a mix of Bridgerton and like the Poirot, Agatha Christie's. Yeah. So Duke and I is my first read liked by Julia Quinn. I'm sure you all know this, but set in a Regency era London, a reluctant lord fakes a betrothal with a young lady to fend off the vultures, but unintentionally falls for his fake suitor. And Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Lord by Celeste Connolly. Lady Petra Forsyth uses her wealth and power to investigate the questionable death of a close friend.
Shelterwood by Lisa Wingate is her most recent novel. It follows 2 unique timelines from 1909 and 1990, which is fun. It's being described as historical fiction, and that's fun for me because I was born in 1990. I have thoughts about that. This new novel is described as a seamlessly crafted tale of tragedy, resistance, resilience, and triumph that gives a poignant voice to the lost children of American history. In 1909, 3 young girls find themselves navigating the wildernesses of Oklahoma as they seek to stay one step ahead of those who are looking to exploit them. In 1990, Ranger Valerie has just moved to a rural part of Oklahoma to open a new state park. When a hiker goes missing, it could be the end to this dream of hers of being a park superintendent. During the search for the body of the missing hiker, 3 long dead bodies are discovered in a cave. So this is a blending of those stories. Both the read-alikes I have here have themes of unlikely companions who are undertaking either an emotional journey or an actual journey into wildernesses unknown. The first one I have is also by Lisa Wingate, just because it has a similar story structure, and again, you have that dueling timeline It's called The Book of Lost Friends, and it starts in 1875, Louisiana. 3 girls who never thought they would find themselves spending time together end up heading west to find loved ones separated from them by slavery and war. And then in 1987, in Louisiana, a first-year teacher named Benedetta has a opportunity to take a job at a stricken rural school, and it appears to be her ticket to student loan forgiveness, something we are all looking for. And she thinks that this is the perfect opportunity to take care of those. What she finds in the woods as she explores the town, however, is a rundown plantation house. The story of 3 women moving west and a hidden book that could change everything the town thought it knew about itself. The next read-alike I have is My Name is Yip by Patty Crew. It has a similar tone and focus on historical detail as well. This book describes is described as a bold adventure set in the 1800s in Heron Creek, Georgia. Yip is born a mute. At age 15, in the span of just a few days, Yip's life is irrevocably changed as he and his new friend, Dud Carter, are thrust into the world of violence and sin in this gripping tale of courage, struggles, hope, and brotherhood. It also gives an interesting commentary on the seductive pull of the American South, its dark and exploitative and complex history. So being described as just a really interesting read. And I'm looking at you. This is The Queen of Poisons by Robert Thorogood. This is his 3rd novel in the Marlowe Murder Club. This centers around Judith, the whiskey-drinking 77-year-old crossword author, Becky, the vicar's wife, and Susie, the town dog walker and general animal lover. The mayor of Marlowe, a small town set in England, dies suddenly during a town council meeting. When traces of aconite, also known as the Queen of Poisons, are found in his coffee, the police realize it's murder. The newly minted civilian advisory, made up of our dynamic trio, are called in to investigate, but the clues they are finding aren't lining up, and it's described as a well-plotted, entertaining, with delightfully quirky and fierce characters, and just the perfect for lovers of Oldsman's Thursday Murder Club and weird, interesting mysteries. So, with that noted, the first read-alike I have is the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. In a peaceful retirement community, 4 unlikely friends meet once a week to investigate unsolved murders, like you do. But when a brutal murder occurs on their doorstep, they find themselves in the middle of their first live case. With a similar small town atmosphere, quirky characters, it becomes quickly apparent why so many are linking these 2 series as good read-alikes for each other, and anyone who's just generally a fan of murder. The next read-alike I have is How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Kiernan. This book is a Jimmy Fallon book, favorite book finalist, and listed as a top library reads pick for the month of March 2024. So very popular. It's described as great fun for those who enjoy quirky small-town amateur detectives, which I thought would be go very well in this room. It is an enormously fun mystery about a woman who spent her entire life trying to prevent her foretold murder, only to be proven right 60 years later at her sprawling country estate. Now it is up to her niece, her great niece, to catch the killer.
From the New York Times best-selling author of We Begin at the End comes a soaring thriller about an epic love story that spans decades. This one's set in 1975, Montclair, Missouri. You have a local boy, Patch, who saves the daughter of a wealthy family who has gone missing. A missing person mystery, a serial killer thriller, a love story, a unique twist on each. Chris Whitaker has written a novel about what lurks in the shadows of obsession and the blinding light of hope. This one has lots of glowing endorsements from well-known authors. A couple relights, similar books and authors. First up, Distant Sons by Tim Johnston. In this one, the actions of two young working men with secrets ignite the passions and violence of a small Wisconsin town, still haunted by the unsolved disappearance of three boys in the 1970s. And then All Listeners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. In this one, a former FBI agent becomes the first black sheriff in his Virginia hometown, and soon after has to investigate the shooting of a young black man by one of his own deputies.
How to age disgracefully. Lydia takes what she thinks to be an easy job in a senior center, only to find that the patrons are criminals and ne'er-do-wells. But when the city attempts to shut down the center, Lydia, the seniors, and the toddlers at the daycare next door must band together to keep their home open. This is an ensemble, ragtag cast, comedic, feel good, general fiction. We have Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. I'm sure you've heard about this. I think it's come up in here a few times now. When Miss Wong finds a murdered man in her shop one morning, she takes evidence and matters into her own hands to solve the case. And then Nosy Neighbors. 25-year-old Kat is cranky and prickly. 77-year-old Dorothy is cantankerous and vindictive. When their home is facing demolition, they team up and try to solve a crime and save the apartment building. Alright. Brat by Gabrielle Smith. This is a gothic ghost body horror, so a little bit of a disclaimer. After his parents' deaths, Gabriel moves home to take care of the estate. As the house deteriorates around Gabriel, so too does his body. And as the moldy walls peel away from the structure, Gabriel's skin peels away from his flesh. Gabriel spirals in health and sanity, beginning to find long-buried secrets his parents kept, and as figures begin to form in the shadows around him, Gabriel becomes determined to solve the reasons they're here. I picked a date to cut my nails. I can't do these up. I think it's Rouge by Mona Awad. This gothic fairy tale sees Belle spiraling after her mother's death, becoming obsessed with her own skin and desire for youth, beauty to evade her mother's demise. Belle finds herself lured into a cult her mother had ties to, and which explains her prideful obsessions. And What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. A retired soldier, Alex, visits their dying friend, Madeline Usher, at her countryside estate. But when Alex arrives at the Usher estate, they instead find a myriad of fungal possessed undead animals. This is a retelling of the fall of the House of Usher, and it just got a part 2. A lick.
Alright. Road to the Country by Chico Zai, O by Oma, focuses on a university student in Lagos who tries to find his brother amid the chaos of the Nigerian Civil War in this new sweeping heart-racing novel. Kunal's brother has disappeared just as the war breaks out in the late 1960s. His rescue mission, however, quickly becomes a journey of redemption and unimaginable courage as his love for his brother is tested and a prophecy is fulfilled. This is being described as a thought-provoking, thrilling, emotional, and just absolutely beautifully written novel. In case you were not aware, this author has actually, several of his books have been nominated for the Booker Award, and he was a finalist twice for that. The first read like I have is one of those novels. It is The Fisherman, with a similar focus on brotherhood and prophecy. We follow 4 brothers in a small town in West Nigeria who take advantage of their strict father's absence to become fishermen. While on the river, they meet a dangerous local madman who predicts that the eldest brother will be killed by one of his younger brothers. This prophecy unleashes a tragic chain of events of mystic proportions. Also described as beautifully written, this book is both heartbreaking and hopeful at the same time, and quite regularly described as a must-read. It's the first read like. The second one I have is The Orchard of Lost Souls by Nadifa Mohammed, with a similar theme of courage, love, and the backdrop of war. This is set in 1988, where there are whispers of revolution traveling on the dry winds in Somalia. But the dictatorship enrooted still remains. Soon, we see Somalia fall into war through the eyes of 3 women who initially thought they would have nothing to do with each other. However, their lives become intertwined as the events of the war take shape. It is described as intimate, frank, brimming with beauty and fierce love.
The Perils of Lady Catherine de Bourgh. This is the 3rd book in the Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney mystery series. In this series, the protagonists are characters from Jane Austen novels. You have the very proper and introverted Jonathan Darcy, son of Elizabeth and Fitzwilliam, paired with the smart and resourceful Juliet Tilney, the daughter of Catherine and Henry. In this latest book, Jonathan and Juliet operate as amateur sleuths trying to prevent the murder of the imperious Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Jonathan's great aunt. Multiple attempts have been made on her life, and she summons the 2 to find out who's trying to kill her. At the same time, love begins to bloom between Jonathan and Juliet. Publishers Weekly says, Greg again evokes the wit and atmosphere of an Austen novel while serving up a mystery that will stump even the most seasoned armchair detectives. For those of you interested, the first book in the series was called The Murder of Mr. Wickham. That came out in 22. Both of these read-alects are Jane Austen-inspired mystery series. Jane and the Year Without Summer is a book in what is just called the Jane Austen Mystery Series, in which Miss Austen is the main character and the amateur sleuth. And then a Purely Private Matter is part of a mystery series, again inspired by Jane Austen. Female sleuth, not Jane Austen herself, but also in 19th century England, the same setting.
A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson is a thriller. A newlywed librarian begins to suspect that the man she has married might be a murderer. Oops. It It's described as a twisty, deviously clever novel. Everything between Martha and Alan seems to be perfect 1 year into their marriage. However, strange little coincidences begin to turn suspicious, leading Martha to question everything she thought she knew about Alan and her sanity. Described as an intelligent thriller with an intricate plot and eccentric characters. The first read-alike I have is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Flynn, because it is also a fast-paced domestic thriller that focuses on the seemingly perfect family, and not everything being as it appears. And they have moved, when Anna, I'm sorry, got ahead of myself, I got so excited, all the words trying to just come out. So this book focuses on seemingly the perfect family that has moved in across the street from Anna. One night, she looks out the window, and across the street, she witnesses something she shouldn't have that sends her world spiraling with these supposed perfect neighbors. It's described as a twisty, powerful, smart, sophisticated story that employs the best of Hitchcockian storytelling. The next read-alike I have is Everyone Here is Lying by Shara Laplan. Anyway, a thriller with a similar look at the facades that we affect when we're around others, and the little coincidences that signal conspiracy. Returning home after a horrible ending to an affair, William is in a terrible state when he finds his daughter, Ella, home unexpectedly. Hours later, Ella is declared missing. As the search begins, neighbors come forward and it becomes clear that William isn't the only one hiding things in this fast-paced domestic thriller centered around family.
Toward the Dawn is a captivating historical romance, second in the Western Light series, although my impression is you don't really have to read them in order. Kat Wadsworth and Sebastian Jones have been living in hiding for 6 months, having fled from a vengeful uncle. They are desperate to start a new life in the West and settle in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Quote, by turns tender and funny, the novel sees the slow burn of Kat and Seb's romance woven seamlessly into a propulsive narrative filled with masked gunmen, greedy manipulators, and enough twists to keep Keneally's fans on the edge of their seats. A couple read-alikes would be A Love Discovered by Tracy Peterson. In this one, a couple is compelled by their circumstances to marry as they trek west to the newly formed and dangerous railroad town of Cheyenne. And Last Chance Cowboy by Jody Headland. This one's about a midwife accused of murder who flees to Colorado, where she falls for the town's charming sheriff, but their love is endangered by her past. Okay, next we have Tarantulas by Porochista Kapoor. Meet the Milanis, fast food heiresses, LA royalty, and your newest reality TV obsession. So the main characters of this novel are 4 Iranian-American sisters who are ready for their chance at Kardashian-like fame. They owe their wealth to their father's invention of the pizza bomb, which is like Cinnabon, but with pizza, which he invented in the 1980s. The filming of the reality show is complicated by the arrival of COVID-19, and the sisters are forced to confront previously hidden secrets and longings. The story is told in a way that gives equal weight to each of the sisters and their individual perspectives. Dramatic, biting, yet full of heart, Tarantulas is a tragicomic saga about high-functioning family dysfunction and the ever-present struggle to accept one's true self. For what it's worth, the author was born in Tehran and raised in Los Angeles. And apparently this was also at least partially inspired by Little Women. So, For read likes, first Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan, that I'm sure you all have heard of. But drama ensues when the heir to a massive fortune brings his American-born Chinese girlfriend home to Singapore for the wedding of the season. And then The Windfall is a humorous family drama in which an Indian family comes into an enormous sum of money that forces them to reckon with what really matters.
Such a Bad Influence by Olivia Monteo is a modern online current technology sisterhood mystery thriller. After years of being overshadowed and outdone by her sister and her online influencer career, Hazel's warnings to her sub-celebrity sister are proven deleteriously correct when her sister vanishes mid-video. Now, Hazel must uncover uncomfortable truths about her sister in order to find her. Rabbit Hole by Kate Brody. 10 years after her sister's disappearance, Teddy's father commits suicide while looking through his take a break. Father kills himself. And then she's checking out his online logs and discovers that he's been obsessed with finding his other daughter. And she picks up where he left off in order to find her. And then the return of Ellie Black. When a missing girl turns up in the woods, Detective Chelsea Calhoun stops at nothing to find out what happened to her. For this girl may be the answer to what happened to Detective Calhoun's sister, but the girl refuses to give up any information. Bear by Julia Phillips. This is a women's fiction, sisterhood, drama. Simon and Alina struggle to make ends meet, living across the bay from Seattle, working grueling hours surrounded by people much wealthier than they are and longing for better. When a bear moves into their neck of the woods, Sam becomes convinced it's time to get out of Dodge. But Elena becomes entranced by the giant and becomes reluctant to leave, testing their unbreakable bond and calling into question the mysteries of the animals around us.
Real legs I got.
Hello, Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. William, ostracized by his parents and siblings, finds family in a girl and her plethora of sisters at his new school. But when William's past comes crawling back to him, it unravels his new relationship and tears at the bonds between the close-knit sisters. And When We Were Sisters by Fatima Asghar. Three sisters are left orphaned and must fend for each other as they struggle to carve their paths in the world and contend with their new roles they must meet for each other.
Incidences Around the House by Josh Mallerman. This is a chilling novel about a haunting told from the perspective of a young girl whose troubled family is targeted by an entity she calls their mommy. To 8-year-old Bella, her family is her mommy, her dadu, and Grandma Ruth. And that is her entire world. But there is also Other Mommy. Other Mommy keeps asking her the same question over and over. Can I go inside your heart? Only Bella's family bonds can keep her safe. But as instances around the house show the cracks in that protection, she has to make the choice around what to do with Other Mommy. Described as hair-raising, spine-tingling, and atmospheric, it is recommended to read this book with all the lights on. So the read-alikes I have both center around creepy things going on around the house. Also fully recommended reading during the daylight hours with all the lights on. The first is naturally The Shining by Stephen King. A new job at a beautiful remote hotel seems like the perfect new start for Jack Torrance and his family. Danny, Torrance's 5-year-old, seems to be the only one noticing the darkness gathering around the hotel in this atmospheric, sinister thriller from the king of horror, pun intended. The other one, this is actually a children's book, but I find it, in fact, more creepy more often than not, is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Coraline and her family have just moved to a new flat, and Coraline is bored. She begins exploring the flat, and soon she discovers a little door that is locked. And much anticipation follows the opening of the door, only to reveal a brick wall. That is by day. By night, Coraline discovers that there is another world like hers, but better, on the other side of that door. There she has an other mother who makes delicious food, toys that talk, and little wind-up angels that flutter around her room. Coraline can stay in this other world, but only if she is willing to do something first. Also chilling, unsettling, and brilliantly written. Yeah, Coraline, of the two, Coraline scares me more, just for the record. One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon. Jasmine and King are our protagonists, and they are excited to move their family to the planned Black Utopia of Liberty, California. Jasmine is especially excited to find a community of like-minded people. King and the kids seem to be settling in well, but Jasmine is struggling. Frustration at how the community is transforming people turns to dread as she uncovers a terrible secret at the heart of it. Described as a thriller with insightful social commentary similar to The Stepford Wives, this novel explores themes of race and the presumptions we make about ourselves and others. The first read-alike I have is The Last White Man by Mohammed. Sorry guys. Because of its similar themes around race and transformation. One morning, a man wakes up to find himself transformed, and he isn't the only one. Some see these transformations as sinister, and it begins raising tensions and anger everywhere. However, the transformations also give a chance for a kind of rebirth. It's described as lyrically written, powerfully uplifting story about the transcendence over bigotry, fear, and the anger that comes with empathy. The other read-alike I have is because of its similar take on a perfect neighborhood with a terrible secret and its connection to The Stepford Wives. It is The Husband by Chandler Baker. Nora is our protagonist. She loves her family, but the weight of her job as an attorney, all of the child rearing, pregnancy, and all of the housework, and everything else seems to be crushing her. I mean, would it really kill her husband to do the dishes? The Dynasty Ranch, though, seems to be the perfect new place for their growing family, especially with the other neighbors who all seem to be other women with great careers, kids, and supporting husbands who don't seem allergic to doing the laundry. But something makes Nora uneasy about the seemingly idyllic neighborhood. It is described as a thought-provoking domestic thriller with well-drawn protagonists and intricate plots. Again, similar to The Stepford Wives. Next we have Malas. This is described as a richly complex story of passion and revenge, following one family living on the Texas-Mexico border and a curse that reverberates across the generations. Told through two different timelines, we follow Pilar in the 1950s and Lulu in the 1990s. Pilar is accosted by a woman who lays a curse on her and her family. Lulu is coming of age and dodging chaos seemingly at every turn, with her quinceañera coming up fast. Lulu forms an unexpected friendship with a mysterious older woman at her grandmother's funeral. Together, they pick at the secrets at the heart of her family. This is further described as a stunning debut full of twists, heartbreak, love, and loss. The first read-alike I have is Woman of Light. Because of its similar tones and focus on family, it is set in the 1930s. Liz Lopez is a tea leaf reader and laundress who is left to fend for herself when her brother is forced out on the run because of a white mob for dancing with a white woman. Lewis begins to have strange visions of the past, witnessing how her family flourished and the sinister forces that devastated not only her people, but also their homeland. In the end, it becomes up to her to save her family's stories and her family in the present. It's described as a multi-generational Western saga about hope, family secrets, and survival. Now, the other read-alike I have focuses on friendships between unlikely individuals, and that is The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot. It is also, it's a little bit lighter in tone though. Lenny is a 17-year-old living on the terminal ward of a hospital. Margot is a 83-year-old fellow patient in the next ward over. The two form an unexpected kinship after bumping into each other at an art class. Together, they realize they have lived an astonishing 100 years. This is a bittersweet novel full of extraordinary friendships, secrets, and the ties that bind us. And also was picked as one of the best reads of 2023.
Some Murders in Berlin by Karen Robards is a gripping World War II thriller set in 1943 Berlin. Dr. Ellen Lund, expert in psychological profiling, is summoned by the Nazis from her home and young son in Copenhagen to Berlin to help investigate the murders of 8 young women. She works alongside homicide detective Kurt Schneider, for whom failure would mean death, since the orders to find the killer come from the top of the Nazi power structure. Together they draw closer to a dangerous serial killer. Read-alikes are also both World War II thrillers. The Shadow District takes place in Iceland. You have an Icelandic detective paired up with a member of the American military police who are working to track down a killer. And in the Rumor Game, this one is set in Boston, and it's a female reporter and a male FBI agent who are facing off against fascist elements in that city. The Material is a clever twist on the campus novel set at a fictional Master of Fine Arts program for stand-up comics in Chicago, the first of its kind in the country. The book has an ensemble cast of characters, all of whom are struggling with their own self-doubts, and all of whom nervously anticipate the arrival of a controversial, high-profile comedian who is serving as visiting professor this year. The novel includes moments of broad comedy and observational humor. It's incorporated throughout. It also explores what a stand-up routine requires of its writer. It's funny, profound, engrossing, and some consider it at least a little bit dark. The English Experience by Julie Schumacher is a hilarious novel of academic mishap about a beleaguered professor who chaperones a group of clueless undergrads on a school trip to London. And then Your Inner Hedgehog is a humorous novel about a philosophy professor's rivalry with the university's new deputy librarian. So both college campus settings, a tinge of humor.
Actually, we had 2 philosophy professors who were feuding for a while. It was hysterically funny for the rest of us. Anyway, now we are starting the nonfiction titles. The first is Sing Like a Fish. Humans have long described the world beneath the waves as a silent one. In this book, we learn that we could not have been more wrong about that description. Award-winning award-winning science journalist, Kingdon weaves together historical discoveries and the latest scientific research to explain the complex interplay of myriad sounds of the ocean and our impact on them. They give clear and compelling information in this accessible and richly detailed book that describes the delicate sonic world that needs our protection. The read-alikes I have, the first is What a Fish Knows, and this book looks at both discoveries and observations about fish and their intelligence, the really interesting and full lives that they lead. They're full of elaborate courtship rituals, lifelong friendships among shoalmates, cooperation, creation, use of tools, and a lot more. It's described as accessibly and beautifully written. That'll have you looking at fish in a whole new way. The other is Oceania by Ted Danson. In this book, he combines vivid personal prose with an array of stunning graphics and information about the oceans, powerfully illustrating the impending crises brewing in our oceans and offers solutions that may allow us to avert them. He pulls information from some of the world's most respected authorities in the fields of marine science, commercial fishing, and environmental law. He provides an accessible account and clear path available to any who wish to be true stewards of the oceans. Now, that would be a lot more fun.
There is no Ethan. A thrilling personal account of 3 women coming face to face with an internet predator. One of the women is the author, a PhD sociologist. In 2011, 3 successful and highly educated women all fell for the same catfish, Ethan Schumann, who ensnared them in a web of intense emotional intimacy online. After each woman independently begins questioning Ethan's story, the 3 manage to find each other and combine their efforts to get to the bottom of the con. Part memoir, part true crime investigation. There is no Ethan will give you a detailed look at how people can get sucked into a con artist's cunning manipulations. In the same vein of cons and imposters, first is The Con Queen of Hollywood by Scott Johnson. This is the tale of a cunning imposter who carved the path of financial and emotional destruction across the world before being taken down by a determined private detective. And My Friend Anna is the true account of the author's friendship with a woman posing as a German heiress who conned her out of $62,000. Choose Sun by Emily Nussbaum. This is pop culture history. It's an entertaining cultural history of reality TV described as a rollicking saga. Nussbaum is a Pulitzer Prize winning staff writer for The New Yorker, and she originally worked as their television critic. The book spans 75 years of television history, from Candid Camera in 1948 to The Apprentice in 2003. It profiles the genre's pioneers and includes interviews with cast, crew, and producers. It's, quote, a rowdy yet unsettling look at how reality conquered television. 2 read-alikes, Freaks, Gleeks, and Dawson's Creek by Thea Glassman. She's an entertainment journalist, and in this book she examines how 7 revolutionary teen shows transformed television and culture. And True Story by Danielle Lindemann is a sociological study of reality TV that explores its rise as a culture-dominating medium, as well as what the genre reveals about us.
This Ordinary Stardust by Dr. Alan Townsend is simply described as an extraordinary, powerful book. Dr. Alan Townsend's family received 2 unthinkable, catastrophic diagnoses in a very short amount of time. Both his wife and his 4-year-old daughter developed unrelated was fighting for her life, and these were his darkest days. Scientific inquiry became his lifeline, bringing him back to bringing back peace, awe, and a sense of meaning to his life as he dealt with these two things. Townsend offers a balanced, nuanced, and moving perspective on the common ground between science and religion, and when at a time when the relationship between the two has become fraught and polarizing, just simply described as powerful. So the two e-likes I have, the first is Awe, the new science of everyday wonder and how it can transform your life, that talks about how that sense of wonder works and how to quantify it, and how it improves your life overall. The other is The Human Cosmos, Civilization and the Stars by Joe Marchant. This book looks at how the scientific drive to understand the cosmos has shaped humanity, whether it was through philosophical and mythic descriptions of what was happening in the stars to our push to understand it on a more scientific level. Both are described as thought-provoking reads that talk about what make us human.
I just pulled a muscle in my jaw. All right.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, 1974, A Personal History by Francine Prose. This memoir from Francine Prose dictates her relationship and conversations with activist Anthony Rousseau before he helped leak the Pentagon Papers in the setting of late night joyrides around San Francisco and the disturbing end of their relationship. Her personal viewpoints of big events of the 70s, and like personal memoir. Most Dangerous is actually a teen novel we have up there, but it has a lot of good information with Anthony Rousseau in it. Not to be confused with the Marvel director, because you can't find good information without having to comb through a lot of him. So Most Dangerous, a historic look at Daniel Ellsberg, the U.S. government analyst who exposed the Pentagon Papers with the help of Anthony Rousseau in a conversation about patriotism and whistleblowing. We got Education of an Idealist, which is a memoir by Samantha Power, who details her journey from immigrant to war correspondent to politician and her appointment to youngest U.S. ambassador for the United Nations. And then we got Octogenarians by Mo Rocca. Roca. I probably say that wrong. Is it Rocca? Mo Rocca. Maracas.
Is that wait, don't tell me? Is that wait, don't tell me?
What's that?
NPR. Yeah, on NPR.
Oh, yeah.
I do too. It's funny.
This is about geriatric success stories. Morocco, CBS correspondent, celebrates the success of those who found their greatest achievements in their golden years. From an everyday cancer fighter who makes amazing art to actresses who didn't get a break until their 60s. This is about hope and inspiration despite age. Celebrities and folk heroes who bloomed very late. It has an overall comedic tone to it. This is followed up by his Mo obituaries, Great Lives Worth Reliving. Retells lost obituaries of the famous dead of the past century, focusing on those stories that have gone untold in this book based on his famous podcast. And then Overlooked, which is from the New York Times and by Misha Padnani. revisiting and giving praise to those obituaries that were swept away for the past 190 years, specifically those of women and people of color with great achievements.
And that is the end of Books in Focus. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. Our next Books in Focus will be on June 11th, talking about the fun stuff coming out in July.
Thank you
again.
very much.
Thank you. Please feel free to grab more cookies and water if you need.